Hello everyone, and thanks for joining. Welcome back to those who have all who joined us for the last session. During the past few hours, we had an inaugural address. We had the inaugural session with a welcome speech by Ms. Vasudha Vidyanaka, our Executive Director, and then we had a very exciting and useful training on resilience, foresight, and transformation. Together with Resilience Frontiers of the UNFCCC, with the keynote address from the director, and then a training, and then also an introduction to Youth Resilience Frontiers, a discussion with Ms. Habiba Al-Khatib. So now we take off for the first keynote address with Ms. Fleur Newman. She is the Action Empowerment Unit Lead, the Gender Focal Point and Focal Point to Women at the UNFCCC Secretariat. She will present her address, followed by a question and answer session, if any, and then we will go on to to one of the most awaited parts of this forum, which would be the presentation of proposals by the youth participants. So, Fleur, if you're here. Right.
Thank you very much, Sanashia, for the invitation to participate in the Global Youth Forum on Climate Change. As we all know, climate change is not a distant threat. It is happening right now, and more people all around the world are affected by its impacts. I'm hoping that the presentation can be up on screen soon. This year, the COVID-19 pandemic has created new challenges and uncertainties for us all, and countries are rightly addressing this immediate threat. But as societies recover from this pandemic, the recovery must be informed and directed by the urgency of addressing the most significant threat humans face. Yes, next slide, please. This animation, which is playing on the slide, provides a stark reminder that even in this year, when human activity slowed due to the pandemic, there was little slowing in greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. We need to be paying attention to this always. Under the Paris Agreement, its first objective is to hold the increase in the global average temperature to well below 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels, while pursuing efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees. I'll come back to this point towards the end of my speech. Next slide, please. We have a chance that only comes around once every few generations, to transition our social and economic models, and this time towards fair, inclusive, and sustainable development. And that's why the Secretary General and the Executive Secretary of the UNFCCC are urging governments, as they roll out their financial plans to recover from COVID-19, to make those plans as green and inclusive as possible. It's more than investment in bricks and buildings, though. It's an investment in our long-term health, safety, and prosperity. So Action for Climate Empowerment, which is deals with an article under the Convention and under the Paris Agreement, and is also known as ACE, is an important part of achieving this healthy, safe, and prosperous future, because it's not for nations alone. It takes all segments of society. ACE provides the framework to educate, empower, and equip everyone to understand that addressing climate change can also help us address some of humanity's other big challenges. Climate change is tied to poverty, to equality, to clean air, to biodiversity, to everything. And that the voices and ideas of youth must be included. And that everyone includes nations and everyone on this in this forum. ACE extends beyond education and training. In addition to climate education and training, Public awareness, access to information, and participation in climate action needs to extend to all age groups, all genders, and those living in all nations, not just the developed ones. And when we are speaking about education and training, it means more than schools and universities. It includes traditional and Indigenous knowledge and teaching, as well as on-the-job training for people who may not have received formal education. It includes people living in cities, but also in rural and remote areas, communities and villages, those who are often overlooked. All 6 elements of ACE have never been more important. We need everyone to be aware of and to act on the climate emergency. Next slide, please. Following the science is known and so are the solutions. Making decisions that are in the best interests of all people. Next slide, please. Biodiversity and ecosystem services and the planet. Informed civic engagement on climate change can grant governments the confidence they need to take bold action, knowing that this is what citizens need and want, and in fact are demanding. Civic engagement can also create change through mobilization, identifying where countries, the private sector, investors, and others need to raise ambition or transition away from destructive action. Next slide, please. So what is the role of youth in addressing these 2 crises the world faces? Well, young people have many roles to play. An important role is climate advocacy, including reminding decision makers of the importance of the rapid and radical transition we need and transformation we need to low carbon, just and climate resilient economies and societies, but also being curious about the climate emergency and seeking out knowledge in school, in university and beyond, being courageous and speaking up about the learning with friends, family, at work and on social media. We have all seen how powerful youth voices can be when speaking up on climate change. As the Executive Secretary of the UN Climate Change Secretariat has said, youth throughout the world are out front, in many cases far ahead of adults on these issues, because youth have seen how it all connects, knowing that addressing climate change does in fact help us address other big challenges, that it is connected to poverty, to equality, to clean air, to biodiversity, to everything. Yet we know that there can be many barriers to the full, meaningful participation and empowerment of young people to take effective climate action. The technical jargon and complex processes at the international level, restricted access to decision-making processes at all levels, including at the national and sometimes local levels, and processes that can seem and may actually be unapproachable because they are run predominantly by older men in positions of power and with many years of experience. Yet there's an important, the role of young people remains important. Recognizing the need for enhancing inclusive participation, parties to the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement aim to facilitate participation of young people in climate policy and action through the Action for Climate Empowerment agenda. In addition, the Secretariat encourages and supports young people to engage in the intergovernmental and national climate processes through ACE activities. The next climate conference at COP26, which is to be held in Glasgow in November 2021, holds great opportunities for young people to engage in climate decision making. The incoming presidency for COP26, the United Kingdom, and the host of the pre-COP, Italy, are strongly committed to creating spaces for young people to engage in the international climate process. The Youth for Climate Driving Ambition Summit will be held back-to-back with pre-COP26 meetings in September 2021 to enable around 400 young people to elaborate concrete proposals on topics that affect the negotiation process of COP26. The last day of the summit is expected to provide an opportunity for discussion between young delegates and the ministers attending the pre-COP. Another important space for youth to engage in international climate discussions in 2021 is the annual Conference of Youth, which is an international event where young changemakers and climate activists from all over the world assemble to a weekend of skills sharing, cultural exchange and networking. This event is organised by Youngo, the official children and youth constituency under the UNFCCC, which is open to anyone under the age of 35 and under. Local Conference of Youth are also organised to have more regional, national and local focus, and to ensure that those who aren't able to attend the international process are still able to contribute. And it offers a decentralized space for bottom-up capacity building of youth and on-ground engagement. And these are just some of the ways that youth can engage in the UNFCCC process. However, there are many more ways that young people can, and we hope will, engage at the national level. The project proposals that you will hear about in the next section, and which I've had a chance to have a look at the proposal outlines, exemplify what can be achieved when projects engage or are led by young people. And we also found this through the global youth video competition that we've been running over the last few years, and unfortunately couldn't run this year, but we are looking to run again next year. In the project proposals you'll hear about, it's really inspiring to see these projects that cover areas that are critical to restoring and conserving biodiversity and ecosystem health, because this is critical to us addressing climate change. And I saw elements of the Action for Climate Empowerment, or ACE agenda, in many of the projects, from educating and training youth and local communities on endemic and indigenous species, civil society green growth training sessions, a youth policy that validates a youth climate action manual, and providing children and teachers with healthy nutrition options and education on environmental opportunities. These are all aspects that I would expect to see as actions under Action for Climate Empowerment at a national level. So it's really exciting to see projects that are addressing those things included. And we need these and many more. Next slide, please. I'm returning here to a reminder of why we need everyone to be educated, empowered, and equipped to address the climate emergency. It may seem like a small number, 0.5 degrees. But the difference between 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees in global temperature increase to humans, biodiversity, and ecosystems is massive. You can see just from this illustration, which is selecting a few of the things, the few of the numbers of the difference between 1.5 and 2 degrees. So you go from, for instance, the Arctic sea ice, you go from ice-free summers in the Arctic every 100 years to every 10 years with a 5-degree warming. And for me, I'm originally Australian and I come from Perth, which is a coastal city and benefits from vibrant reefs. Coral bleaching is expected at 2 degrees to eliminate virtually all coral reefs. And all of these, the sea ice, the impact on people in terms of the number of people who are going to be affected by extreme heat and what that actually means, the consequences of these things, what it means for food security, what it means for increased water in the atmosphere, so increases in extreme weather events, and with the extreme heat, and it makes some places unlivable, which then also means potentially forced migration. And forced migration brings with it its own social issues around poverty and around gender-based violence, and the social cost to communities of losing people to urban areas or to other countries. And things like species. So, you know, there are tipping points at which a loss of species means that they don't recover. And so when you look at a difference between 6% of insects or 18% of insects being affected, it's the difference between not being close to tipping points and being close to tipping points for extinction. And we rely on insects, for instance, to pollinate our food crops and to and they are an important part of the ecosystem and deliver services that we probably aren't even aware of. And this one on water availability, this is so critical because of our need for clean water, clean drinking water. And this is a significant increase in the number of urban residents who will be exposed to severe drought. That's urban residents. That's not talking about those in other areas where the increase would also be significant. But why it's significant in terms of urban residents is because of the trend, and the UN Habitat has shown, of where populations are moving, and they're moving to urban areas. And the economic cost is significant because we are also, as part of the Sustainable Development Goals, aiming to ensure an end to poverty, and having that kind of impact on the economy, even at 1.5 degrees, it's significant. But at 2 degrees, it's very significant. So I wanted to bring us back to this point because it's wonderful to see solutions. It's important for us to understand that that we know the science, and we know that there are solutions. So it's important for us to understand the emergency and to understand the consequences, but it's also very important for us to not get lost in the complexity and perhaps despair of what the climate emergency may mean, and get on with addressing the climate action that is needed. Next slide, please. At this point, we need urgent and an ambitious action by all stakeholders. This is not a complex, this problem is complex, and it's not one that can only be achieved by governments or the private sector, but needs a multi-stakeholder approach to the response. And that's the only way for countries to achieve their climate targets, and for all of us to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. Your enthusiasm, determination, and continued efforts to address the climate emergency is cause for hope. For this, you have our deep appreciation, and we are right here with you in this race to address the climate emergency. Together we can and we must create a fair, just, and climate resilient future for all. Thank you.
Thanks, Fleur. And just to let everyone know, we do have a few minutes for questions if anyone has any questions for Fleur. So while this is happening, I want to, and I have a question as well. But before that, I think we could probably do like a quick icebreaker. So I'm just going to set up a Mentimeter to see where we have participants joining us from. Just going to drop the code on the chat. So for those who don't know, and for those joining us from Facebook, welcome. Kindly log on to www.menti.com and enter the code 6205821. And yeah, just let us know where you're joining from. Let me just share my screen. And so we just type in where you're joining from, just to get an idea, because in our earlier session, we had participants joining us from Cameroon, Nigeria, South Africa, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Kenya. So it's always nice to know where our participants are from, where our youth is engaging from. From Sri Lanka. I see someone in the chat had United Arab Emirates. Thank you for joining. Hi, Zaya from Maldives. Because I think one of the opportunities that, I mean, while we have the forum annually, this is the fifth time we are having the Global Youth Forum on Climate Change. It's the first time we're taking this virtually given the pandemic, but I think the pandemic has also, in a way, opened up an opportunity to connect with others from outside of Sri Lanka and outside of the region. Someone from Trinidad and Tobago, thank you very much for joining. And had it not been, I don't think we would have had this opportunity. So I think it's always good to, so maybe we'll keep it on for a minute if there's anyone else joining. Someone from India. Oh, this is great. So I think that's a relatively diverse spread of people, and it's always good to know. So another country. No. So maybe until this comes in, I just want to maybe ask you a question that I had in mind. I think for young people themselves, and I think I'd like to call myself young, just to know, I mean, how is it that when young people also have all of the projects in mind, how can young people keep momentum? I think that's one of the biggest questions people of my generation and those maybe younger than me would have, is the loss of momentum. And sometimes, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and I think we've all felt it this year, this disruption from the global pandemic, and it's disrupted a lot of things, and it feels a little bit like momentum is being slowed. But I think what we are seeing, and certainly I've seen from my own experience is that people have taken advantage of this virtual world and are engaging in different ways. So things like this, and having working groups and networking and coming together to share experiences. And I think you're right that in many ways we certainly wouldn't have delivered a number of the events that we did this year virtually if it hadn't been for the pandemic. And we did them regionally, which it's a lesson learned from this year that we will continue to do that, because it brought a whole new group of people together. Not that they weren't working on gender and climate change or youth and climate change or updating their NDCs. It was that we wouldn't necessarily get to bring that collection of people together. And I think that's part of it, is using the tools that we have, and that young people have a lot, in terms of technology, and finding different ways to communicate the message about climate change, because there are many ways to talk about it. So, using TikTok and other forms to create challenges or to do things that help to reach a different audience altogether.
Yeah, I think actually social media has also been very imperative in bringing to light a lot of issues, including climate change, mental health, and as a result of lockdown, violence against like women and everything to right. I think social media has been very imperative in capitalizing that change. And so we have a question from Damita. It's on the chat. So we talk about building back from the pandemic, but should we build forward as the pandemic showed that many changes that we thought are possible is not actually, it's impossible is actually possible. Okay.
Yeah, great question. And I would absolutely agree. I think that what the pandemic has shown is a couple of things. One is that international cooperation is still relevant and necessary, and that when we need to, we can come together and collaborate on solutions to things, and we can come up with different solutions. So I think it's important that that it is seen as an opportunity to build forward or build differently or reimagine what it is that we see as our societies, because what we need is very different from where we've been. So what we need to do for climate change is very different. So it is that kind of opportunity where we have had a break in what was business as usual, and we need to use that going forward.
Thanks. We have two more questions. So one from Dinetta, with regard to public access to information, what do you think are the main barriers for you to access climate information, um, to be able to build, develop, and implement project activities to combat climate change?
So I think one of the one of the things about access to information is climate change can be quite a complex issue to understand, and so how it's communicated and where it's communicated and through which mediums it's communicated is important. So also being able to put it into the context. So one of the things I find is that there's certainly within our process, there's a lot of technical jargon. So one of the things that we try to do is to offer different levels of information so that it's framed in a way that somebody who isn't a climate scientist would understand. And also for those who are working in the area, we also have technical information. But I also know that there have been some really successful programs using radio, for instance, and podcasts. So there are, again, it's a question of knowing who your audience is and being able to tailor some of that information to the audience, including in relation to local languages, because languages is also a challenge. And obviously literacy is also a challenge, which is why sometimes things like radio programs can be more accessible and they don't rely on high bandwidth for video.
Thanks, Claire. And actually adding to that, I think owing to the pandemic, since a lot of schools went online, one thing we realized actually in South Asia is that not everyone has access to internet. So I think certain countries began televising classrooms and using radios. So I think it's about looking at what we have and what we can make do within the best of times. So just a few more questions on the chat. I think we should take a few more. There's a question from Vasita. Could many countries have initiated developing youth action plans related to climate change? And also, yeah, we have a project with our partners in Ghana to develop youth strategy on climate change. And it's good to know whether similar activities have been informed to the UNFCCC by other government actors. And sorry, just a quick one before you answer. Our youth partners from Ghana will be joining in for the next session. The details are up on the website. So yes, thank you.
Thanks for the question. And yes, Ghana is a leading light in the youth strategy on climate change. And I'm not aware of many other countries at the moment. That doesn't mean it's not happening. It's just that it's not necessarily being communicated to us or through their national planning. And it's one of the things that we would encourage countries to do, is to share information through their national reporting, whether it's if there are elements of this going to be included in, for instance, nationally determined contributions or in national adaptation plans. It's useful to, even if it's just a mention of it, because for that very reason, you are looking for other countries who are also doing that work. It's not necessarily a sort of compare and contrast, but more about understanding who's doing what and whether there are lessons to be learned. But I will certainly keep you informed.
Thanks. And so there are 3 more questions I think we can take. Another one from Director. What do you think are the main challenges for youth, especially female youth, in participating in climate action?
Another good question. I think that climate change is not all that different from other aspects of, well, climate change covers everything, and in every aspect of our societies and our economies, pretty much everywhere in the world, there are barriers to entry, or barriers once particularly women and particularly young women enter the workforce. So those barriers are the same for climate action. So it's around also issues of safety in the workplace, issues of being taken seriously. So I was earlier in another event where a young woman was talking about her experience in the climate process as a young female delegate, and feeling that her opinion was not being taken seriously by her more senior, mostly male delegates, and that's a common issue. It's also around things like access to finance. So the same issue for entrepreneurs, young female entrepreneurs wanting to enter into climate action. Where venture capital goes there's significantly less that goes to female-led ventures, and also in terms of access to mentorship and things like that. So there are a number of different barriers, but I think that there's also a much greater awareness of those barriers, and there's a lot going on in terms of, particularly in the private sector, to increase diversity in both boards and also in the sort of projects that are being developed. And that's why there is also a gender action plan under the UNFCCC, is to address those specific barriers.
Thanks, Fleur. So maybe we could take 2 more questions because we do have a bit of time. Yeah, the question is from Ramya. Do we have any idea if COVID has made any impact of pollution levels and climate risks?
Yes, we do. I don't actually have the numbers here, but there was, and particularly in the early stages where countries were going into significant lockdown measures, where people were not traveling at all, even within their cities, there was a drop in both air pollution and in greenhouse gas emissions, but it was immediately reversed as soon as the lockdown conditions were lifted, and it's not made any statistically significant difference to the year's greenhouse gas emissions.
Thanks, and maybe we could take the final question from Dr. Sugatapala. The 2030 Agenda and SDGs will develop a solution framework for all the challenges, including those on health. Why do global communities fail to address COVID-19 within those frameworks?
I think I I think there's a number of reasons. One is that the immediacy of dealing with the COVID crisis meant that a lot of policy was done. If there hadn't been long-term pandemic planning within governments, then that planning was being done in a very compressed way. And so the immediacy of dealing with the crisis was the focus. I do think that that what COVID-19 has highlighted is the fragility and the vulnerability of social protection systems around the world, not just in developing countries. And in fact, in developing countries, there has been some good case studies on social protection systems. And that should inform, one would hope, that will inform the recovery measures that are taken by countries. It will, the lessons will be learned from what has worked and what has not. And also, what people are capable of doing, the collaboration that is possible, the civic engagement that's possible. So hopefully, the lessons from COVID, and also around making sure that health systems, domestic and unpaid care work, all of those areas are in fact seen for the valuable part of the economy that they are, and that there is a strengthening of those things as part of the response.
Thanks, Claire. I'm going to ask the last question on with 2021 coming, what would be the plan for ACE? Like, what activities you'll have? Also, more like, I think you explained this in your presentation, but how can the participants here engage more? What can we do?
Great. Well, if you didn't engage this year in the ACE dialogues, all of those are available on our webpage. So the recordings and the presentations for all of the ACE dialogues this year are available. Next year, again, the focus will be, so the expectation for the Doha work program, which has been an 8-year work program, comes to an end this year and will be is being reviewed, and likely a successor work program will be agreed at COP26. So that's kind of the focus for under the process. But we will also be supporting activities related to the ACE national focal points and helping to strengthen that network, and also a number of activities with YOUNGO, so the youth constituency under the UNFCCC, and certainly that's a fairly straightforward way for participants to engage, is to reach out to YOUNGO and join the constituency. And we would, a lot of the activities I assume we will be doing will be virtual, so we will advertise those. But also ACE focal points are an entry point for at a national level for people who want to engage more in the national process. So you can ask questions of your ACE focal point, and the focal points are the name of the focal point and the department is available on the UNFCCC webpage as well. And then, yeah, it's up to countries also to be looking at whether or not they're developing ACE strategies, and to keep an eye out for that sort of thing that's happening at a national level.
Thanks, Claire, and thanks everybody for the great questions. Now it's the time I think a lot of us have been waiting for. It's the presentation of the proposals that we received. And for this session, I would also kindly request my colleagues Dirini and Nipun to also maybe pitch in. And I think this session we could make it a bit interactive. So if your internet connection is good, you could turn on your camera. I think it would be nice to see faces. If you want to, no pressure. You could turn on your camera and leave your mics muted. It would be good to see who we are also talking to. And yeah, if not, and if our first presenter is ready, so just to let you know, each of the presenters, the participants who will be speaking next are those who have submitted proposals, for the for when we put out a call for proposals. Oh, hi Nipun. Perhaps you will be better suited to also explain this session and what's happening with this session. So. We lose Nipun. Hi, Vasudha. Hello, Harsha. Right. Nipun. Okay, we lost Nipun. Right. So, hi everyone. Okay, so just to let you know, these are the proposals that we received. We had about 26 really good proposals that we received, of which we shortlisted 14. And then on Monday and Tuesday, we opened it for voting, and it was one of the most dynamic portals that we've had. And I think it was buzzing until like last evening until we closed it. So thank you everybody, to those who submitted proposals and to those who voted in for your favorite proposals. So now we will have the presentation of proposals that's happening with our first presenter.
Yes, we can start with the number one if it is possible. If it is
right. Okay. That would be Hassan Maulid. And I'm very sorry in case I do mispronounce your name. Please correct me. I am open for corrections. We have Hassan Maulid Yasin. Are you online? Is Hassan online? Oh, Hassan is not online. Sorry. Right. We are starting with Dulanga Vidaran again. Yes. Dulanga Vidaran again, who I spoke to earlier. Dulanga.
Hi.
Hi,
Yes.
Dulanga. Yes.
I'm having a bad connection, so I won't be switching on my camera. I'm really sorry about that.
No worries. So you have 1 minute for your pitch. And yeah, so just to let everyone know, Dulanga will be presenting her proposal, and she has 1 minute to speak. And yeah, I will be timing you from this end. So over to you.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Dulanga. I'm based in Sri Lanka, and my project idea is about community-driven seaweed farming. Seaweed is a fast-growing oceanic plant, and it's known for its carbon capture and storage. There is also global demand for seaweed driven by its use in food processing. My aim is to introduce coastal communities to seaweed farming, and with the support of the private sector, a seaweed buyback system will be introduced, and a pre-arranged commercial rate will be given to these farmers. Since no land or fertilizer is required, the project will have a positive impact on the marine environment, and seaweed beds can also act as breeding grounds for fish, which can improve marine biodiversity. Globally, women are more involved in seaweed farming, so the project will aim to create social benefit, championing women at village level. And I believe that bringing a monetary incentive for these communities will ensure the long-term feasibility of the project. And the idea is replicable in any area in the world or in Sri Lanka that is suitable for seaweed farming. Yep, and thank you. Do you have any questions?
So I think what we'll do is maybe we'll first, if anyone has questions, maybe you could drop it on the chat. So since we'll have a few presentations on, you might have to write the name of the presenter and put a hyphen and then write in the question so that it doesn't get lost in. So we'll first have all of the pictures, and then after that we will head to questions. So thank you, Dulanga, for that. Next we have, yes, Nipun.
do you carry yourself? Yeah.
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. I'm really sorry I'm not able to switch on my video due to the connection problems. So,
That's fine. You can start.
okay. Can I share my screen?
Yes, you can. Let me also just you could try sharing your screen.
Okay, okay, I'll try once.
If not, let me just make you co-host. You should be
Okay,
able to
okay,
share now.
okay.
I can see myself. Yes.
Can to you all?
Yes, I can see it.
I
Yeah.
hope so.
Yes.
Okay, okay, okay. Now I'll start it. Hi everyone. Good evening to you all. I'm Pramadika. I'm here to present you our project on ecosystem restoration to reduce the global warmth and lessen the threat to the atmosphere. The main climate change related issues in the Galle district, Sri Lanka, are the less amount of coastal flora and the coastal erosion. Our project becomes a sustainable project because we have planned to plant the coastal trees both physically and also in the hearts of our beneficiaries. The awareness of the youth on this issue will also be increased. We have a huge trust on our potential. Moreover, from the past experiences gained from handling projects, our team is capable of giving a huge impression to the community and making them sensitive towards nature. Thank you.
Thank you. And your 6 seconds under. Thank you very much. So thank you, Pramudika.
Thank you so much.
So moving on to our next presentation
Yeah.
from Harsha.
Harshavardhan from India, right? Yeah. From India.
Yeah, hello everyone.
Hi Harsha, can hear you.
Yeah, this is Harshvardhan and I'm representing India Youth for Society. And our project is about clean course. And we have a concept named as 4C, which includes coastal cleanup, citizens' participation, cloth bags, and also collection and recycling. And we believe that only the cleaning the coast doesn't reduce the problem, but also we should find an alternative for the plastics. So we have introduced the cloth bags. So we are making the public aware of the cloth bags and we are distributing to the public for free of cost. And also we do collect the plastics and also we do recycle them. We have a recycling plant here in Visakhapatnam, which is a coastal city in India. Thank you.
Thanks, Harsha. Right. So moving on, Amina, Zaya. I think Zaya was online earlier. Zaya dropped a message. Oh,
How are you?
hello. Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'll just try and share my screen, okay? I've got some not so nice videos to show you guys.
Okay.
Did you see that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just gonna play it now, okay? And then I'll
Sure.
start. All right. Okay. Hello, my name is Zaya and I'm from Maldives. My passion is the ocean, and as you can see, this is the trash that keeps floating around. And this is mostly because we have a problem with waste management in Maldives. We have a museum of different ways that waste can be managed, but it's just initiatives that hasn't been fruitful, mostly because it's not community based. So what I propose is a circular economy about waste management where community involvement in all aspects. Um, this will create ownership in terms of when I do information, workshops, exhibitions, and also initiate learning and teaching within the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Zaya, and thanks for that video to everyone who hasn't seen Maldives outside of their tourism promotions. So
This is
thank you. Right. So next we have Kanchana. What? Geet,
Kanchana
right?
Geet. Kanchana Geet song.
Right. Kanchana, are you online?
Hello.
Kanchana.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Shall I share my screen?
Yes, sure. Let me just also make you cool so you can share it.
Okay. Shall I start now?
Yeah, sure. You can start.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me this huge opportunity. I'm Kanchana Geet Samar, fourth year undergraduate of University of Colombo. Zero waste university concept is one of the major sustainable method that has been adopted by many international universities to manage the solid waste. In this project, University of Colombo has been chosen as the study area. The rationale behind the is that the university Colombo Municipal Council, which is producing the highest amount of per capita solid waste in the country. The objective of this project is to mitigate 50% of solid waste in the University of Colombo as the initial step. The main activities which are hoped to hit under this project is conducting awareness programs, implementing reduce, reuse, and reject concepts, introducing color garbage bins to university, banning the single-use are reduce per capita solid waste generation in the university, increase the knowledge of related concepts, control the university contribution on environmental pollution, create opportunity for environmental friendly and waste-free entrepreneurship, open chances to innovation and research studies on zero waste concept, encourage the stakeholders to start the zero waste concept in their household also. Thank you very much for listening my idea. I think let's make to waste-free world. Thank you.
Thank you, Karthina, for that. And we have next Samuel Adunreke. Hope I pronounce your name correctly. Samuel, it's time for you.
Samuel was online earlier for our sessions, I noticed. Samuel, if you're here, maybe just raise your hand if you've signed in from a different name. Right, maybe until we get Samuel back online.
Okay. Okay, I think Ashan can talk about two of the biodiversity projects since these two are not able to participate this session. Ashan talk about two of the projects. So, Ashan.
Thank you, Nipun. So, Seni, I think the two projects which I was working with the colleagues, they have had some technical difficulties, I think, for joining. So, I thought of sharing these two projects as it was a bit interesting. One project is with the team One Tree, One Student. So this is conducted by a colleague known as Hassan Maulid. I hope I pronounce his name correctly, from Somalia. So his project mainly focuses on a tree planting program, which is done together with school students. So actually, he's willing to like plant trees such as bananas, lemons, watermelons, and he has several activities such as demonstrations and trainings for students to highlight the importance of these fruit plants. And well, as like in his project, there is a monitoring plan as well. As like many projects, the the monitoring is not conducted. So, but in his project, there's a monitoring plan as well. So his final output is like the people in the area can get something to eat, nutritious fruits, as well as he's able to, like if there is extra fruits, he can sell it. They can sell it and find income as well. And another project that I'm hoping to share is the project title Biodiversity Check, which was submitted by a colleague Julius from Kenya. And in this, the main project aim is to increase the forest cover by 10%. And to do this, he is willing to use the support of the indigenous people as well, since it could be important for his project activities as well. So the activities consist of recording the species in the particular area and identifying the threatened species. So after that, the project aim is to collect the seeds of these and replant them. So in a way,
Sorry.
it is.
Excuse me, Ashan. Julius has just signed in and he has mentioned that he's in. So maybe he can present also. Okay. And also Samuel is back. So thanks, Ashan, for that, for making the first presentation. So Julius, you could speak. Julius, could you say something? Could you say hi or something?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Can you get me?
Yes. So maybe Julius could speak and Samuel could speak next. Thank you.
I'm sorry for signing in late. I had
That's
difficulties in converting time.
Nice to have you here. Thank you.
And I'm gonna talk about biodiversity check. And biodiversity check comes in to address the issue of biodiversity accountability in efforts to prevent loss of biodiversity. And it's focusing especially on indigenous tree species and indigenous knowledge. And the main thing that's going to happen here is to reintroduce the indigenous culture of living with the biodiversity in the modern society. And that is in our social amenities. That includes learning institutions, government spaces, worship centers, and such like places. Now, the outcome is having biodiversity centers. And the biodiversity centers comes in and will address the issue of sustainable development. That is number one, under the tenets of sustainable development, that's social. It will bring in the issue of peace, gender, and health. Through the indigenous knowledge, people get to share different things. And also economic, it will create both short-term and long-term job opportunities. That includes tourism, because at the end of the day, people will be interested to come to a particular social amenity and see the tree species which are found there, and they will create certain employment to people. And also short-term in terms of people who will be engaged in accountancy of the biodiversity and such like. And finally, to environmental protection, which comes in through biodiversity protection. And also it will address the Sustainable Development Goals number 13, that's climate action, 15, life on land, 17, partnership to achieve the goal, which is, of course, we'll work with organizations such as Global Youth Biodiversity Network, RAMSA, Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species, and such like. So it will embrace both the issue of sustainable development and the SDGs. Thank you.
Thanks, Julius. Samuel was online, but Samuel seems to not be there. Samuel, if you're here, could you say something? Samuel's back, I see, but his mic isn't.
Anyway, we can go with the Gracie is here, no, from Tanzania. So Grace, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Okay. Now it's your turn.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Gracie Yera from Tanzania. Recent graduate in Bachelor of Environmental Science and Management. And my project title, based on the biodiversity at the thematic area, was a win-to-win attitude on wetland ecosystem conservation using scientific artwork. So I would like to start with us imagining like few steps, including like imagining like how the river tends to maintain its cleanness, or even how the authorities or the water authorities tends to struggle a lot to make sure that the water supply is clean and safe, or even the fact that we stay home and still get fresh water from the tap. And I came to think of it and realize that this is all the work of the wetlands. The wetlands tends to provide these grateful and free services to us. So I was wondering that though the wetlands are there, but if there will be no wetlands, or even there is some disturbances on the wetlands, this will lead directly or indirectly to the devastating impacts to the well-being of the humans. So what should we do? That's where I am focused much. So as most of the wetlands are in rural areas where most of the peoples are not educated, they're always literate, all sort of it. So in order to make the wetlands responded on those areas more safer, more education has to be, or more information has to be provided to those indigenous people to know the best ways to handle those wetlands ecosystem services and to ensure the wetlands are not endangered through its life cycles. So as a student, I realized that in order to convey a direct message or a very understandable message to the indigenous people who are found in those such rural areas where wetlands are being used and endangered, using artwork or scientific artwork will be much more easy, because I believe through art, people become easy to understand and get the information that is presented within the artwork. So this might be a very easy and friendly way to provide information to those people rather than having these formal ways, including the seminar talks that we usually use, which usually have much documentation. So my projects will only integrate the artists who are capable of transforming scientific papers, which are dealing with environmental wetland conservation and utilization, into very specific scientific artwork that is able to carry and convey message to the people and make sure that the wetlands are much more conserved and utilized at a maximum level. I think that will be okay. I did talk a lot.
No, that's all. Thank you. I think Prasadi Karunaratne is here, so we can go with Prasadi next. Hello, Prasadi, can you hear us?
Hello, I can hear.
Yes, it's your turn.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Prasadi Karunaratne, currently a chemistry undergraduate, a road actor, and an environmental activist. Recently, sustainable use of biodiversity and ecosystem rehabilitation become a big challenge due to the globalization and those kind of issues, as well as majority of the community has no proper awareness about this. Awareness about the significance of the sustainable development as well. So in my project, I focused on the thematic areas of biodiversity and marine ecosystems. So in here, I came up with a solution for that. In my project, I plan it on the 3 phases. In first phase, it's about a social media campaign. In second phase, it's about an awareness program about turtle conservation. In third phase, I plan to conduct I plan to conduct a coral reef restoration program in the southern coastal belt in Sri Lanka. Obviously, we are youth. We are the hope of the future. I think as youth, we have a big responsibility on sustainable use of biodiversity and the climatic change as well. So individually, we can't heal the earth, but together we can. Yes, thank you very much. If you have any problem, please drop a text in the chat box.
Okay, thank you, Prasadi. For Mati, I think Dulanga is going to talk about Mati's project as well, because these two are colleagues in one university, as far as I know. So Dulanga, are you representing Mati's proposal as well?
Hi, yes, and just a small correction, we're colleagues, we work together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a small blurb that Mati shared. I'm just reading it on behalf of him. So can I start?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hello, everyone. For any community-based project to truly work, I believe it should be sustainable. For me, that means it needs to tackle economic, social, as well as environmental goals. My idea today is a model which involves fishermen, their families, and recyclers, connecting all of them to mitigate ocean pollution. Recyclers in the country collect PET and other waste from various players. My idea is to connect the coastal communities with the recyclers by forming a business partnership. Here's how it works. Fishermen and their families will collect plastic during their day-to-day activities. This will be while fishing or organizing beach cleanups in their area with the support of the community members. The collected waste will then be sold to recyclers at a commercially agreed rate, creating an alternative income stream for the coastal community. While this model benefits the environment, the economic incentive for fishermen and the sourcing need for recyclers will ensure the model works in the long run. It's a win-win. Thank you.
Right. Until maybe Nipun or Sirini gets back to us with an update. So just to also keep the energy flowing, if you all are joining, I think this should also be available on the phone. There's a reaction button on your computer or screen. Just if everyone could maybe quickly react to everything that we've been listening to. I mean, I have been very excited to listen to all of this. Maybe could everyone just react very quickly to what you've heard, whether you like it or not. Oh yes, thank you for clapping. We've got hearts. Right. Thank you everybody. Nipun, and thanks everyone for presenting. It's always a pleasure to hear new ideas and new project proposals. Nipun, Pirini, do we have an update of who else is presenting?
Yes, I think Dolly is remaining, but she is not online at the moment.
Samuel's back.
Online.
Samuel is back too. Yes. Samuel, could you hear us? If you can you please unmute yourself and maybe Samuel? Try unmuting. Right. Samuel, could you hear us? Right. Maybe that is not working. Any other? Is there anyone else?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good to be
hi.
here.
All right,
Hey.
Samuel. Samuel, hello. Nice to
Can you all hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Samuel, we can hear you. I saw in the chat that Varun's here as well.
I think Varun.
Hi, Varun. Are you?
Yeah. Hello.
Good evening. So maybe until Samuel comes back, we'll just chat with him and see what's happening. Until he comes back, we could probably start presenting. Thank you.
Sure. Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so hello everyone. Good morning, good evening. So I'm Varun. I'm representing the Brahma Kumaris. So the topic of the project is flourishing futures and nourishing biodiversity. So, as we see the situations around us, we can understand that working towards policy making to help the environment alone has not really helped us as much as we would have expected. So, as an organization that looks at global issues holistically, we see that changing the course of this downward spiral requires a shift in human consciousness. So for lasting transformation, we will really need to fill our minds, our hearts, and our actions with an uplifting spirit. So there are threefold approaches to our project, as you can see on the screen. So one is the individual flourishing. Second is the flourishing of interpersonal communication. And third is the flourishing generation of becoming change makers. So if you actually think about it, the root cause of degradation of environment is actually the degradation of the quality of human heart. I mean, it is the awareness of human being which will determine what kind of relationship that being has with nature, and also what are its consumption patterns. So working on our self-awareness and working on our virtues will be flourishing at an individual level. Then comes flourishing our relationships with each other. So as we work with each other for environment action, what kind of energy exchange do we have, and is our energy uplifting? And thirdly, as you all know, how we all affect each other, everything in the biosphere is so interconnected. So this flourishing of human heart has a profound effect on the environment, and which ripples across, creating a flourishing generation that can be change makers for a healthy planet. So to summarize, along with what we are doing on the outside, we will also have to work within to create a shift in our consciousness. And then automatically, once the relationship with nature becomes better, individual to individual, then we will automatically, naturally be very caring and compassionate towards every being. Thank you.
Thanks, Varun, and that was a great presentation. And right, Nipun, Tireni, do we have an update?
Samuel, yes, Samuel and okay. Samuel, can you hear us? Say hi if you can hear us, please.
Samuel's not online, actually.
It's not.
Yeah, I think Samuel's been having connection problems.
What about Dulmi? Only these two people are missing.
Dulmi is not online, I think.
Right.
Okay, then we can go for like a Q&A session if someone have questions from the proposal. What do you think, Seni?
Yeah, I think that's good. Just to let everyone know, we could also, if anyone has any questions, please drop them on the chat, or you could actually unmute yourself and ask, because this session is, we want to also keep it as informal and lively as we could.
It could be yeah, it could be questions, it could be suggestion, any ideas or any feedback for their proposal.
Hi, yes. Can I chip in here?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just want to say, first of all, it was a pleasure to, and also very interesting to read all your project.
Okay, so I think, sorry.
Did something happen to Dinetra's connection? Dinetra?
Dinetra,
hello?
We can't hear you.
Okay.
It seems he is missing.
Right, on the chat, Damruan, you have, if you have something to say, I mean, you could definitely unmute yourself and talk.
Hello, can everyone
Dinetra is back. Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to do this without the video. Maybe it's because of the internet connection, but I just want to say it was really interesting reading all your project proposals, and it was even more exciting to see all of you presenting your projects, especially with the enthusiasm that I see. And so I guess it's an open question to all of the participants who submitted their project proposals, which is, so what was your motivation for your project proposal ideas? And what are the challenges that you see which you might have to incur during the implementation of your projects? And how do you think you will overcome these challenges? So I guess it's open for anybody to answer.
Yes, Julius. Yeah.
Yes, please. What motivated me to, thank you for a good question first. So what motivated me to come up with this proposal is the need to address these challenges, which are loss of biodiversity and climate change in the face of COVID-19. Now, it became a challenge for us because it's believed that COVID-19 arises from habitat degradation. And now, in that phase, what should we do so that if such a pandemic arises in the future, we can prevent it, and if it happens, we can be able to tackle it. And now that comes to the issue of climate change, which we really need to address under biodiversity protection. Now, that's the whole thing of biodiversity check, so that we can deliver on biodiversity protection and also the climate change goals. And also the need to mainstream the issue of food security and also inclusivity among the society. And that's where I talk about social amenities, having biodiversity centers in social amenities. And the challenges which I expect to get on the way is starting. I know funding is the most common thing, but the issue of starting, where do I need to start from? The process is strenuous. It will start by documenting the biodiversity species which are threatened to extinction, and it's a strenuous process, but I hope to address it by engaging in a partnership with the various stakeholders. And I mentioned that one earlier on, that is Global Youth Biodiversity Network. It's a network which I volunteer with here in Kenya. And that's one of the things they can help me do. Convention on international trade on endangered species, and also LAMSA. We also have some other partners which I can work with, including the communities and the government, so that I can address the issues and the challenges, so that we can move forward to make this a reality. Thank you.
Thanks. That's a great question. Do we have any other? Maybe we could take one more individual who submitted proposals to respond to that. Maybe someone from South Asia.
Maybe Saya.
We shouldn't probably put people on the spot, but anyone from South Asia who's
hello.
Okay, Zaya's on the spot. Yeah, so maybe.
No, that's all good. That's a really great point, Julius. Like, we have to figure out a way to work with all these different stakeholders. And relating to my proposal with your question, with your great question, my motivation was really mostly about seeing so much trash in the ocean, because I've been diving so much, and then talking to my activist friends and also families, and they're always complaining, but I'm like, why don't we do something about it? And then it's like, oh, the government will do something about it. But I really want to foster this. I know the project is 1 year based. I've put it as 1 year based, but it's got a whole lot of components in it. So I'm sure that it won't all go through, but I know that it would foster that circular economy idea and hopefully bring that about in the whole of Maldives. That's the vision. And well, the challenges, well, it's the change, I guess, like people reluctant to change, but that will come when the information's given out, because when you have all the information, people want to seek it and they want to try it out. So I guess it's like giving them that opportunity. That's what I'm trying to aim as well. So yeah, that's from me.
Thanks, Zaya. And does anyone else have any other questions? I think maybe we can take one more question, and then we could go on to the announcements of the 8 selected proposals of the 14 shortlisted. If anyone has any questions, you could just maybe drop it on the chat or it.
Seni, could I just come in? Yeah, sorry about earlier. I almost tripped and fell on my face. That was the background. So I just saw that Samruan was here on, like in the chat, he had mentioned that he was ready to speak. If he's still there, maybe we could let him speak.
Oh, Samuel's back, yes.
Samuel, can you hear us? If you can, please say hi.
Well, Samuel's actually written his response on the chat saying that he has technical challenges. So Samuel, I think it's okay. If you can, maybe come online, but if not, I'll just read it out. So he says, our project highlights the importance of integrating the mangrove restoration strategy into the whole concepts of people, planets, and profit mechanism for planetary benefits through community-based adaptation best practices. Essential to this is to plant trees more as it's needed for carbon sinks and sequestration, and as our own way of contributing to BNDC footprint in alignment with the Paris Agreement processes. Another important aspect is the capacity building through campus awareness and education through reworking the climate education strategy. Thank you, Samuel, very much for that. And it's unfortunate that you couldn't present.
Grace need to add something on that for the previous question.
Grace wanted to speak about her motivation. Sure. Go ahead, Grace.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Grace.
Okay. For my side, how I become motivated for my title, it's really a little bit very funny, but my grandpa lives there and he faces it and he sees like it's very difficult to understand whatever is happening there. So when he told me about it, like they're having these problems in getting clean water, I face it's very difficult to explain him on the best ways of utilizing the wetlands water for irrigation. So I used my very formal way that every educator uses, but nothing works, like gathering them together, asking them what's happening, like they didn't even understand, even know what to answer. So this year on September, I tried to go there again and I created this simple artwork showing the enforcement and compliance of the environmental laws. And I guess what they understood it, and I think they even became feared about it and say like, so this thing is real, strictly inhibited. So through that way, then they tend to understand like what we're not supposed to do is doing these activities along the wetlands or doing this thing on this place. So, and now you always ask me like, what are the acceptable ways of utilizing the wetland water? And I think he tried to avoid the law. So that's why he usually asks me like, Grace, please just tell me what should I do? Because I don't want to be punished by these environmental laws that we just told us here around. So I thought like, at least this way, through a drawing, just a simple drawing, my grandpa understood like, I'm not supposed to do this thing along this place or doing this thing at this place. However, before I tried telling them in a formal way, but they couldn't understand. But through a simple picture that I drew to show them like, this is not great, this is great, they tend to understand. So through that thing, it can become in my head like, maybe this is the best way of educating these old people, like best way of utilizing the wetlands is by avoiding all the human activities that are endangering the life of the wetlands. So that the only way that motivated me to come up with the title. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. If we have someone here, someone are you online? If you can hear us, please say hi.
I don't think Damron is online. No, he doesn't seem to be online. but I suppose we could take one more brief question, and then we could go on to the announcements of the selected proposals.
So I have a small question. So I saw some projects related to plastic waste. So actually we can clean them and always do programs such as that. But what measures can we, I would like to ask from them, what measures and what are the things which are hoping to do to stop, to reduce this plastic from getting into the oceans and other areas?
Are you directing that question to anyone in, I think, maybe if you could say who you also did, I think one of the presenters spoke on this, but maybe if you could perhaps name them, they might be able to unmute themselves.
Yep, 1 second, I think. So if Saya could answer the question.
Yeah, so my my project will actually have a component, right? It's about waste segregation and capturing that waste that's floating, and also segregating the waste that's in guest houses and communities, and then finding plastic, like I don't know if you heard about precious plastics. They do blueprints for anyone can make it, like these machineries that will grind the plastics, these ovens that will melt the plastics, and you could make any kind of mold that you could make pots, so you could make cups and things that you could sell, you know, so you would make an economical value out of it as well. So you are like, the thing is, what we've done to the planet is we've extracted this plastic, and then we know it's gonna stay in our planet for a long time without degrading, so we should be able to use it for a long time, right? So that's what we're trying to do, extend the life cycle of it. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are we going for one more question, or are we going for the results?
I think Dinetra had a burning question. Maybe we
Okay.
could do Dinetra's.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I just have a question, again, open to all participants, and I think it's building on something that Julius mentioned, which was COVID-19. So how do you guys think that your projects will be impacted, your project activities will be impacted by COVID-19, and how do you think you will overcome those challenges? Again, this is open to any participant, so feel free to unmute yourself and yeah, answer. Thank you.
Anyone wants to answer this? Oh,
Can I go on?
yeah, sure. Yeah, Julius.
So I hope I got him right. If the COVID-19 has impacted the society, and if possible, all the possibility of COVID-19 affecting our activities or on the ground as far as implementing our project is concerned. And I want to respond this way. Yes, we have been impacted by COVID-19. People are not going to work, people are working from home. That's a challenge. But as for the start, because we are positive that COVID-19 is not going to stay here forever, and at some point we are going to combat it. So the first thing, as far as my project is concerned, is working on correction of indigenous knowledge and documentation of threatened species, and that the kind of information first we are going to depend it from the international bodies, you know, CITES and also RAMSA, to get the information from them on the species which are affected. Then we can now move on to plan on how or locate the institutions which you want to work with, the social institutions so that we can start the actual work on the ground. Actually, it's a big challenge. I know my response is not 100%. It's a big challenge which we need to sit down and redefine ourselves. And I believe that's why we are here in this forum today, so that we can share ideas amongst ourselves and we can listen from our seniors. They can give us their experiences on the way forward as far as implementing this project is concerned in the face of COVID-19. So entirely, my response would be, we are here today so that we can listen from you for ideas. And I don't have a perfect response for that. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And thank you, Samuel, for your input on the chat as well. It's there for everyone to see. So now, and thank you for the questions. Thanks, Nipun Tirini, for helping me out, and anything else on the chat. And thank you, everyone who presented your proposals. It was really nice to know what you've been up to. So maybe I'm sorry, I'm just going to call for another reaction. I really like the reactions. So just kindly react once again to everything that you heard. Thought it was fantastic. Alrighty. So up next, we have the announcement of the 8 selected proposals, which Dennis, our Director of Research and Education, would do. Dennis?
Yes, thank you very much, Sinasha. Thank you very much, all the presenters and everyone attending. So I'm Dennis. I'm Director of Research and Education at SLYCAN Trust, and I have the honor and the pleasure to present the winning proposals. But first of all, let me quickly share my screen. So we had a lot of proposals that came in, and they came in from all over the world. We had many proposals from South Asia. We had a lot of proposals from all over Africa, but we also had some from East Asia. We had some from Latin America. We had a lot of different proposals, and we selected.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, just wondering, I'm not sure if that's the right screen. It's a blank screen. It's your virtual background.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. That's okay. So we had a lot of proposals from all over the world, a lot of interesting and diverse proposals. And we selected, first a number of them, I think around 26 that can be built on, that we saw a lot of potential in. But then we had to break this number down due to the requirements of the voting process. So we selected 14 proposals. I'm sure you all have seen them. And we opened voting for them. For the last 2 days, people could vote on these proposals. Everyone could vote for 2 proposals, and we got a lot of votes. Many people voted, and we went through all of this. And out of these 14, through the voting process, we selected 8 proposals to be integrated into the upcoming days into the group work. So the next session will actually start in 10 minutes. No, at 8. So in 20 minutes. And we will start to work on these proposals that have been selected. So before I go into the 8 winning proposals, I just want to say that all the 14 proposals that we selected and all these 26 proposals actually, so all of the ones who have presented today were part of these 26 and many were part of the 14. They all have a lot of merit. And if we could, we would take all of those. But since we have to break it down, we had to select 14 and now through the voting process 8. And we selected by categories. So we have 2 proposals selected for biodiversity, 2 for oceans and coastal ecosystems, 2 for sustainable food systems, and 2 for climate change and disaster risk. So without any further delay, I will start going through the selected ones, the ones that got the highest number of votes. And I'll start with the first thematic area, the 2 that got the highest number of votes for biodiversity. And these are biodiversity check and 1 tree, 1 student. And I think biodiversity check Julius has presented already. 1 tree, 1 student, I think hasn't been presented now. We hope that the project lead will join the next session. But it's basically about planting fruit trees in schools and provide children and teachers with healthy nutrition options, and use it also as an educational opportunity to both like enhance tree planting and get environmental awareness raising. So these are the two for biodiversity. For oceans and coastal ecosystems, the ones that have been selected are community-based adaptation, mangrove restoration and campus awareness, and Save the Oceans. And both of these have been presented today by Samuel and Prasadi. So congratulations, so they are going to move ahead for the oceans and coastal ecosystem topic. For sustainable food systems, we have no more seasonal fruits and vegetables wastage, and permaculture, food security and nutrition, self-employment and healthy lives. And Damran was there, but I think he had some technical issues, so he couldn't present the no more seasonal fruits and vegetable wastage one. The other one I think has not been presented, but we're anyway going ahead. These are the two that got the highest number of votes for this thematic area. And to close it off, we have two more for climate change and disaster risk, sustainable development, circular economy, climate change mitigation and risk management. One is clean coasts, which got a high number of votes, and then a circular economy, waste management. And although both have been presented today, both presenters I hope are still in the call. And yeah, congratulations. Congratulations to all of the 8 that have been selected. These are the ones we're going to go ahead with for the group work in the coming 3 days, like today and tomorrow and the day after. And each group will have 2 proposals basically to take and work with. And these are the ones on from the left: biodiversity, ocean and coastal ecosystems, sustainable food systems, and then climate change and disaster risk. So congratulations to everyone who got selected through the voting process. Congratulations to everyone who submitted a great proposal, who got selected as part of the 14 or to present today. And we hope you'll all join us for the next session at 8. I will give it now back to Sinasha, I think. Thank you very much. I'll keep this up for a second.
Dennis. Sure. Thank you, Dennis. And thank you to, and congratulations to everyone who's presented, whose projects have been selected. If your project hasn't been selected, kindly do not be discouraged. It wasn't because it wasn't good, but it also was on a voting and the democratic process. So just to let you all know, we do have a short break before our next session. So just to let you know, our next session is on initiating climate action, which I think is a really great follow-up from this session. We have panelists from Ghana, India, the Maldives, as well as Germany, and it's a mixture of youth participants as well as experts in the field. So we really encourage you, and also, sorry, following the panel discussion, we have our first thematic breakout group that will go on for 30 minutes, and that will be your first interaction as a group. We have a few more group sessions lined up starting today, and that's all available on the website. If you haven't received it already, kindly just drop your email address on the chat box, and we'll be happy to send you the agenda in a PDF form. And Wasita, are you fully? Wasita, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. So just a quick addition to all who submitted the proposals. I didn't think I introduced myself. I'm Vasudha Vijayanayaka, the Executive Director of SLYCAN Trust. So just want to say thank you very much. Great presentation. It could be that the messaging that you had wasn't very clear in a proposal when you wrote it. While you presented it, it made a lot of sense. So just know that it's not that you're killing the proposal that you have already. There's scope for you to incorporate some of these elements into the process of developing the project proposal, the collective one. So in the process of developing one throughout the next sessions, you could always suggest some of the elements in your project proposals to be incorporated, because at the end of the 3 days, we'll have a collective proposal. Though the initial pitch came from one, it could be a collective, a thematic proposal that is going to be coming out from this youth forum. So just want to make sure that everyone understood that.
Thanks, Wasita, and thanks everyone. So my name is Sanashia. Once again, we will take a 15-minute break. Not a 15, maybe a 20-minute break. It's 7:40 here in Sri Lanka, and come back here at 8 p.m. I'll drop the call-in details on the chat as well, in case you haven't seen it already. We'll come back here and maybe we could listen to some great presentations and then start off some group work. So thank you to everybody and see you back here soon. Bye for now.